On this episode of Travels with Bill, something a little different. That is a giant beaver. We're at the Northwest Regional Library in Swan River, and we're going to visit with John Warms. He's the author of Strange Creatures Seldom Seen. He's doing a tour, and he's got lots of displays, including a giant beaver, but he also has a giant frog on display. See the normal-sized frog? Well, the big one is what the giant-sized version looks like. We're going to talk to John pretty much the entire episode. He's going to tell us some of the stories. He does have a book. I'll put a link to it in the description. It has these stories and pretty much all the pictures you're going to see, so it's all laid out there for you. But not many people get to talk to John, so I thought we'd spend some time and get to know him a little better as he shares some of his stories. When we're talking giant beaver and giant snakes and giant frogs, Sasquatches, and even underwater moose, it can be a little bit hard to believe, but the book has a lot of information, and John absolutely does believe. There's John now. He's getting ready to tell us about a Sasquatch.
When I got his story about a dozen years ago, he was the second person that had the same sighting as this gentleman that I first heard about some years before that in Cumberland House, Saskatchewan. And the only two people I have ever encountered of the hundreds of people that had Sasquatch stories of the other type, these were the only two that had seen and reported this type of smaller, more human-like animal. And so in Kevin's basement, we gathered there and had this interview. Archie says that he's 6'4", and he's still around. He's become a friend of mine. He said this one that he had an encounter with, from less than 10 feet away. He figured it was about 6'2", but it was heavier. So he calls it his 325 pound woman, hairy woman. So a little shorter, but a little stockier, so a little over 300 pounds, he figured. But the difference between these and the regular Sasquatch is a totally different type of creature. This one is so human-like that it's got all the main features of a human, like a neck, which they don't even have a neck, the other ones, and shoulders, a flat head like us, ears, and a nose that protrudes like us. I felt sick when I talked to this guy on the telephone after somebody recommended I see him or talk to him in Saskatchewan. Because what he was describing was the same thing as what Archie was describing. And that didn't match what I had heard. All my Sasquatch stories were totally different.
This is cute too.
But
and I mean, you could do it with your...
I interviewed him separately.
You could write really whatever.
And when he came out with these pictures that he had drawn, the camera was rolling before I even saw the pictures. And I tried not to show my displeasure, but this just did not match. But then within a year or so, I heard about him, and boy was it a delight to find out that what he saw matched pretty well exactly what he saw. So when I got the two together in Kevin's basement, I got his whole story, and then he added some things, and they compared, And when I showed them this picture that I brought along from a book that I found terrific, it's called Grizzlies and White Guys, from a native grizzly bear guide hunter. He had some encounters, and what an artist had done for his book, the doctor put out the book because the guide was in a care home by that time, but because he realized he had so many interesting stories that they needed to be documented. So anyway, when I showed them that picture, they both agreed that was what they saw. So we know that they are in BC, and these two saw it in this general area between here and Cumberland House. And I have no reason not to believe that they might still be around.
So what do you think, like when all the other sightings other places are so big and these are different size and different features?
Totally different creature, it seems. But what do I know? You know, I've heard so many hundreds of these stories and only 2 of these. So that's why I'm appealing to people, you know, to check it out, you know, in this area, whatever area, and get more information out to just, you know, let us enjoy more of the reality that's out there that's so hidden.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But everything here is reality. I know all the people that gave me either the stories and the sketches or just the stories, and an artist did many sketches here as well. But everything is what people have seen. And if it wasn't something real, flesh and blood, I wouldn't want to touch it. Many people wonder, even some of the native people wonder if the Sasquatch is part, you know, a spiritual phenomenon. But I know this guy. He bugged me for summer after summer, wanting to tell me Sasquatch stories. And I'm glad he did, even though this wasn't my favorite animal. And then finally, in his old age, he came clean, and he admitted that this is what had happened to him when he was 17 years old. He had shot what he thought was his wounded moose, and when he got there, it turned out to be this creature here. And that explained why he was so fanatical about the topic. And he was a prosperous, intelligent farmer. It just didn't add up, but until you knew what had happened to him. So I have him on video too. Kevin actually took my camcorder video and made it into, you know, whatever form it should have been on the disc. So I have a variety of these stories on DVDs that I'm waiting to decide what to do with them.
Interesting.
When I went into the north, this was one of the main stories that people wanted to present to me, you know, the underwater moose. And I just didn't know what to think. But they'd keep coming and keep coming. And I'd get reports of people that had, you know, actually in person, had shot at them and could not bring them down. They would run along the shore, and they would fire shots. They could see that their shots, you know, hit the mark, but I guess because they live under the water, their hides are so thick, and apparently they have a thick layer of fat, so that even if they drew blood, they couldn't bring them down with their regular moose guns. And different hunters would mention about seeing tracks either singly or in pairs, or even a herd of their tracks come out of the water and then go back into the water. And different native men were reported to have, you know, followed these tracks in their canoes and then looked down, if the water was clear enough, and seen them lying on the bottom. And this hunter, not hunter, this teacher from the States, I think it was in the 30s, came to northern Canada to see, you know, what the native culture was all about. Excuse me. He ended up in the Pas, and that's where they met a man who was almost 100, who said that as a young man, he had walked across this frozen lake that had just fairly thin ice he could see through nicely, and in one spot he had looked down, and here was this big animal that was browsing on the bottom. So they live underwater. I would say, from how few people have seen them, they must be down there, over 99% of the time, because not that many have actually seen them. So it's a unique. But oh yes, the thing that might answer the difficult questions is they all remark about this thick, call it like a scarf or folds under its chin. And so the grandson mentions what his grandfather speculated, that this is possibly where they manufacture their oxygen for them to survive underwater.
Well, you said this is one that's difficult to believe. Do you believe them all?
Because there are so many stories that corroborate each other, how could I not believe intelligent people that have survived to this day, living in the wilderness? They know their animals. They have more to lose than to gain by sharing these stories. And so, yes, I have no difficulty believing people that, in all sincerity, that I am referred to. They don't usually come to me. I am referred to them, and so they're usually happy to tell somebody their story, somebody that is interested and seems to believe sincerely what they're telling. So I would say almost all these stories that have so much corroboration, I can't help but believe them. And I have seen 3 animals myself.
What did you see?
I saw this platypus where it was mentioned to be, and I saw the giant beaver where it was mentioned to be, and that was on the Sioux Valley Reservation where the Swan River runs through. And the other animal was a big snake that was a lot of sightings of them are in Lake St. Martin near where I live. And so I had heard that when people were swimming, and I guess there was always splashing involved, that often they would see, not that far away, something had a little bit sticking out of the water, was watching them. So when I realized that they were the snakes and such, maybe other animals as well, water-based, that they were attracted by splashing water, people swimming, I made a machine to simulate that, which was simply a pump that blew water way up in the air. And the first time we tried it on that same lake, within 20 minutes, my friend said that he pointed out something, the direction that he was looking, something that was on the water. It looked like a log. About 15 feet of it, you could see it. And it wasn't there before, and we could see that it was moving. So, we seem to have managed to alert it or to lure it to the surface and to watch us for a while from the surface. So it submerged in between, but 3 different times in different directions from our boat, we would see it surface again. So we knew it had to be a snake because it was that shape of something that was long and flat and round.
You mentioned you're looking for people to continue this on. Your family's not too interested in it. What are you hoping you find for somebody that wants to continue the research?
Okay, I'm not sure if I quite understand just what you mean they're hoping to find.
Well, you said you were hoping that you'd come across somebody that had interest that would go out and research these things more. And
Yeah, like on this this whole library tour, I kind of left the invitation, with a paper that I gave to interested people, that if they were interested in participating in whatever way they were comfortable, even maybe choosing an animal of their liking, and kind of maybe work with others in their area or their friendship group, or in any way participate somewhat in this type of research, investigation, that I would welcome it, because I can't do all that much anymore, and usually this is something that should be done with a team of people that have expertise, in camera technologies and outdoor skills and so on. So, yeah, I'm looking for people that would like to participate in this, and work with him and see where it goes.
well, that's our interview with John Warms. Now, he has written that book, Strange Creatures Seldom Seen. It's available on Amazon, a bunch of bookstores as well. We have some in our store. Now, I know it's kind of tough for you to get to our store unless you happen to be in the Swan River area, but the book is a must-read. It's got all this information. These are basically pages from a lot of that book. Some of the pictures that are in it, the stories are written there too. If you're into this sort of thing, and even if you're not, it's worth a read. I know people that after they read the book have spent weeks looking for giant beaver, hoping to maybe find one. With the giant beaver specifically, we know they did exist at one point, right? Historically, there is a record of that. The only question is, are they extinct now, or are they not? After John left Swan River, he was headed up to northern Manitoba to look for some more giant beaver. I haven't heard if he found any, but you just never know, because there could be a lot of things out there. That's it for this episode of Travels with Bill. Get a hold of the book, read it, and hopefully you've enjoyed seeing a little bit of John. You did hear him mention in there, he has some DVDs of interviews with some of these folks. I hope someday we get to publish some of those on the channel, because I know you'd like to hear them as much as I would. For now, from the Northwest Regional Library in Swan River, Manitoba, we'll see you next time on Travels with Bill.